Sigmar Polke was a German painter and photographer. Polke experimented with a wide range of styles, subject matters and materials. In the 1970s, he concentrated on photography, returning to paint in the 1980s, when he produced abstract works created by chance through chemical reactions between paint and other products. In the last 20 years of his life, he produced paintings focused on historical events and perceptions of them. Life. Polke, the seventh in a family of 8 children, was born in Ols in Lower Silesia. He fled with his family to Thuringia in 1945, during the expulsion of Germans after World War II. His family escaped from the communist regime in East Germany in 1953, traveling first to West Berlin and then to West Germany Rhineland. Upon his arrival in West Germany, in Willich near Krefeld, Polke began to spend time in galleries and museums and worked as an apprentice in a stained glass factory in Darwin-Kortersdorf between 1959 and 1960, before entering the Kunstakademie Darwin-Kortersdorf at age 20. From 1961 to 1967 he studied at the Darwin-Kortersdorf Arts Academy under Carl Otto Gar paragraph TZ, Gerard Heuermann, deeply influenced by his teacher Joseph Beuys. He began his creative output during a time of enormous social, cultural, and artistic changes in Germany and elsewhere. During the 1960s, Darwin-Kortersdorf, in particular, was a prosperous, commercial city and an important center of artistic activity. In the early 1970s Polke lived at the Gaspelhof, an artists' commune. From 1977 to 1991, he was a professor at the Academy of Fine Arts, Hamburg. His students included, among others, Georg Herold. He settled in Cologne 1978, where he continued to live and work until his death in June 2010 after a long battle with cancer. Work. In 1963, Polke founded the painting movement Kapitalistischer Realismus with Gerhard Richter and Konrad Fischer. It is an anti-style of art, appropriating the pictorial shorthand of advertising. This title also referred to the realist style of art known as socialist realism, then the official art doctrine of the Soviet Union and its satellites, but it also commented upon the consumer-driven art doctrine of Western capitalism. He also participated in Demonstrative Ausstellung, a storefront exhibition in Darwin-Kortersdorf with Manfred Kuttner, Lieweg, and Richter. Essentially a self-taught photographer, Polke spent the next 3 years painting, experimenting with filmmaking and performance art. Photography Indiana, 1966-68. During his most conceptual period, Polke used a Rolleiflex camera to capture ephemeral arrangements of objects in his home and studio. In 1968, the year after he left the Art Academy, Polke published these images as a portfolio of 14 photographs of small sculptures he had made from odds and ends, buttons, balloons, a glove. From 1968 to 1971, he completed several films and took thousands of photographs, most of which he could not afford to print. During the 1970s, Polke slowed his art production in favor of travel to Afghanistan, Brazil, France, Pakistan, and the US, where he shot photographs and film footage that he would incorporate in his subsequent works during the 1980s. In 1973 he visited the U.S. with artist James Lee Byars in search of the other America. The fruit of that journey was a series of manipulated images of homeless alcoholics living on New York's Bowery. He produced an additional series of photographic suites based on his journeys to Paris, Afghanistan and Pakistan and Sao Paulo, often treating the original image as raw material to be manipulated in the dark room, or in the artist's studio. Beginning with his 1971 Paris photographs printed using chemical staining to create works full of strange presences while under the influence of LSD, Polke exploited the photographic process as a means to alter reality. He combined both negatives and positives with images that had both vertical and horizontal orientations. The resulting collage-like compositions take advantage of under- and overexposure and negative and positive printing to create enigmatic narratives. With the negative in his enlarger, the artist developed large sheets selectively, pouring on photographic solutions and repeatedly creasing and folding the wet paper. completed in 1995 in collaboration with his later wife Augustina von Nagel, a suite of 35 prints entitled Arkansas combined street photography with images from Polke's paintings, developed using techniques of multiple exposures and multiple negatives. Painting Polke unregistered trademark. Early work has often been characterized as European pop art for its depiction of everyday subject matter. Sausages, bread and potatoes are combined with images from the mass media. His Rasterbilder from that period are works that exploit the raster technique of printing as a way of subverting and bringing into question the apparent truth, validity and purpose of the media images that his paintings appropriate. He imitated the dotted effect of commercial newsprint by painstakingly painting each dot with a rubber at the end of a pencil. In works such as Carl André and Delft or, later, Protective Custody, Polke used a canvas made of furnishing fabric, thus elevating it to the status of a visual motif. His creative output during this time of enormous social, cultural, and artistic changes in Germany and elsewhere, demonstrate most vividly his imagination, sardonic wit, and subversive approach in his drawings, watercolors, and gouaches produced during the 1960s and 1970s. Embedded in these images are incisive and parodic commentaries on consumer society, the post-war political scene in Germany, and classic artistic conventions. Returning to painting in the 1980s, he maintained his interest in alchemical properties. In 1980, he began exploring Australia and Southeast Asia, working with materials like arsenic, meteor dust, smoke, uranium rays, lavender, cinnabar and a purple pigment from the mucus excreted by snails. He began to make large, gestural paintings which combined figurative and abstract imagery. During the 1980s he experimented with materials and chemicals, mixing together traditional pigments with solvents, varnishes, toxins and resins to produce spontaneous chemical reactions. These experiments produced elaborate abstract paintings which reflect on the concepts of originality and authorship which underpin the modernist tradition and, in particular, the mystique of American abstract expressionism. A complicated narrative is often implicit in the multi-layered picture, giving the effect of witnessing the projection of a hallucination or dream through a series of veils. Polke often soaked the fabric for his paintings in resin to make it transparent. He also painted the colored shapes on the back, so they show through as shadowy forms. By pouring color substances on a laid-out canvas and directing the process only to a restricted degree through swaying the picture's surface, Polke surrenders the task of pictorial invention to the colors themselves. In 1994, he produced The Three Lies of Painting, where a landscape containing a mountain and a tree is intercut with abstract devices before succumbing to the intrusive presence of a large, vertical strip of printed fabric. It is festooned with multicolored hands, suggesting once again that Polke wants to emphasize the artista unregistered trademark's own manipulative. In the mid-1990s Polke began to work on a new series called Druckfehler, or a printing mistakes, a unregistered trademark, inspired by printing errors found in newspapers. Fascinated by the relationship between the random mistake and the original image, Polke would enlarge and manipulate the distorted newsprint. He then paints the image onto a polyester surface with the aid of a projector, and coats it in layers of resin. Buried within this elaborate surface are sheets of gold mesh, creating yet another filter through which the image must be read. In a few cases, Polke manufactured these so-called mistakes. The elongated figures in Aus Lernen and New Zu Lernen are the result of his having dragged a picture through a photocopier. In 2002, Polke developed a new technique of a machine painting, a unregistered trademark. These are his first completely mechanically produced paintings and are made by tinting and altering images on a computer and then photographically transferring them onto large sheets of fabric. Up until this point Polke had rejected mechanical processes, preferring to explore the visual effects of mechanical technology by hand. From 2007, Polke continued to develop and refine his lens paintings series. The conceptual framework of the lens paintings is grounded in theories set forth by monk Johann Zahn in a 1685 book on o idiotric artificial eye, a forerunner of the telephoto lens. Polke's painted a Elancer generates a variety of distortions, mutations and spatial illusions when seen from different viewpoints. Films when asked to participate in Konrad Fiskera unregistered trademark S Museum exhibition Conception at Museum Isbrowick, Polke suggested he make a film in which he scratches himself and uses a pendulum. The resulting film Der ganze Car Paragraph a PER 1/4 HLT site leached und Mar Paragraph CHTE Fliegen, made in collaboration with Christoph Köhler Paragrapher, is a 35-minute piece in which Polke scratches himself and uses a pendulum. He also reads from the esoteric 19th-century grimoires the 6th and 7th books of Moses and poses as the letter X, with parallel lines of white string connecting the legs of his trousers with the arms of his shirt. Commissioned works For the reopening of the Reichstag in Berlin in 1999, Polke created a series of large, three-dimensional lightboxes. Lighted from behind, images seen through the grooved surfaces of these lightboxes change as the viewer moves past them. Drawing on his early glass painting training, Polke realized a series of stained glass windows for the Grossmar 1/4 NSTER Cathedral in Zurich between 2006 and 2009. Exhibitions. Polke had his first one-person show at Gallery Rena Copyright Block, West Berlin, in 1966, and in 1970 he had his first solo exhibition at Gallery Michael Werner, which would subsequently represent the artist for the rest of his life. His first solo exhibition in New York, of paintings made at least a decade earlier, was at the Holly Solomon Gallery in Soho in 1982. Following a 1987 show at the Milwaukee Art Museum grouping Warhol, Bierce and Polke, the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago mounted a solo show for Polke in 1991. Polke exhibited at 3 Documenta and several Venice biennial exhibitions. By the latter years of his life, Polke's artistic achievements were being recognized in large-scale exhibitions around the world, with solo shows at Tate Modern in 2003 Euro 2004. Tokyo's Ueno Royal Museum in 2005 and the Getty Center in Los Angeles in 2007. In 2007, Vienna's Museum Moderne Kunst held an exhibition of Polke's work entitled Sigmar Polke, retrospective that spanned his career from his appropriations of pop imagery and continuing through decades of perplexing compositions and clever critiques to arrive at current works that employ a haze of chemicals, minerals, and paints. Also in 2007, Axial Age, a monumental cycle of paintings, was shown for the first time at the 2007 Venice Biennale, with the wish explicitly expressed by the artist that the work should remain on display in Venice. Polke is scheduled to have a retrospective Alibis, Sigmar Polke 1963 Euro 2010 shown at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, from April 19 to August 3, 2014, then travels to Tate Modern, London, United Kingdom and Museum Ludwig, Cologne, Germany. Legacy. Through his numerous high-profile exhibitions, Polke exerted an international influence, affecting somewhat younger artists such as his compatriots Martin Kippenberger and Albert Owen, Lara Schneidger from the Netherlands, the Americans Richard Prince, Julian Schnabel and David Saul, and the Swiss duo Fischli and Weiss. The artist John Baldessari described Polke as an artista unregistered trademark S artist. Today, Polke is often grouped with Gerhard Richter because both came of age and experimented in West Germany in the 1960s. Art market. Over the decades, Polke had shows with dealers Anthony Defay, in London, and, in New York, with Marion Goodman and Holly Solomon. He hedged, however, on official representation until the 1990s, when he went with Michael Werner Gallery. Since 2015, the estate of Sigmar Polke is represented by David's Werner Gallery. Polke achieved early success for his paintings and drawings of consumer goods. His mid-1960s works remain the artista unregistered trademark S most recognizable and have performed the best at auction. A first record price for Polke unregistered trademark S work at auction was established at Christie's in London in 2007 when £2.7 million were paid for a 1966 canvas titled Strand. At a Sotheby's auction in London in 2011, Polke City Painting 2 sold for $7.4 million, and his jungle established a new record for the artist at $9.2 million. Meanwhile, entitled Tschungel, a romantic landscape from that used magnified Band-Aid dots from a newspaper in the style of Royal Liechtenstein, sold from the collection of Count Christian de Climb to an unidentified telephone bidder for $9.2 million at Sotheby's in 2011. By 2015, it sold again for $27.1 million. The estate of Sigmar Polke has been established by his heir his widow, artist Augustina Baroness von Nagel, daughter Anna Polke, and son Georg Polke to build up an archive in the Artista S Cologne studio. The estate also administers the Artista S intellectual property rights. A catalogue on a copyright of paintings, photographs and works on paper is currently being prepared by the estate. Recognition, 1964, Neo-Dada Pop die College Kapitalistischer Realismus, Gallery Rena Copyright Block, Berlin. Awarded the Young Germans Award in Baden-Baden with Klaus Geldmacher and Dieter Krieg, 1975. Awarded the prize for painting at the 13 Biennale des Arts Sao Paulo, 1986. Awarded €OE Golden Lion at the XLII Biennale di Venezia, 1988. Awarded the 1988 Baden-Wauwon Quarter-Württemberg International Prize for Painting, 1994. Awarded the Erasmus Prize, 1995. Carnegie Award at the Carnegie International, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, 1998. International Center of Photography, Infinity Award for Art. P.S. 1 Contemporary Art Center, New York, 2000. Awarded the Kaiser Ring, Goslar, Germany, 2002. Premium Imperial awarded by the Japan Art Association, Tokyo, 2007. Awarded the Rubens Prize, 2008. Foreign honorary member in the field of visual arts, American Academy of Arts and Sciences, 2009. Honorary member in the American Academy of Arts and Letters, 2010. Awarded the Rossi the Haftmann Prize, Zurich. See also, The Portrait Now. References. External links, NY Times obituary, current exhibitions and connection to galleries at artifacts.net, exhibitions and literature, portrait of the artist by the Goethe-Institut, French, Sigmar Polke, Back to Modernity ISBN 978-0-85323-911-6.